All right, and our conversation here on The Explainer continues with the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Public Service, Moses Kuria, who joins me tonight to talk about, among a number of issues. Let's start by, where that story left off with the LSK saying they're hoping the views of the people will be taken into account in the final decisions that will be made for the next financial year. CS Kuria, public views ended yesterday. Overwhelmingly against the provisions that have been made in the finance bill. It is no different from what we saw last year, and we know what happened with the Finance Act. So the question many would ask is, does the government listen to its people?
The government does listen to its people. The government has listened before. And in this conversation, Yvonne, for me, the primary mover is the people of Kenya, because they're the ones who voted for us and put us in office. We are willing to listen, and we will listen to people. We will listen to their representatives in Parliament. This is a parliamentary process. We are listening to stakeholders. We are listening to industry. We are listening to private sector. So that we are willing to do. What I have a problem with is the position of the LSK. By the way, it is a legitimate right of any government in Kenya or anywhere in the world to raise taxes. Because it is only by raising taxes. There is no other source of money for government, to run government, except taxes. When we borrow for one reason. Why do we borrow? Because we can't raise enough taxes. Yeah? So the primary source, the only legitimate, bona fide primary source for running a government is by raising taxes. So you cannot take me to court for raising taxes. That's number one. You can only say this tax. For example, let me give you an example. Young Omtata went to court about the housing levy. Did he say it is not the right of government to not raise the levy? No. He said there are some things that were not done in the process of raising the levy that were not constitutional. Go and fix them. But the actual injunction about raising taxes is people of Kenya voting in a general election who said, the Republicans, for example, in the US, the Democrats, they are the ones in power now. They are going to have arguments with their Congress and all that, but they say, finally, if you don't do the right thing, it is the voters of Kenya who will, deal with you at the right time.
CS Kuria, I don't think anyone is, disputing the fact
they are. Because if you listen to the arguments of the LSK, if you listen to the arguments of the LSK is, why are you raising these taxes or that taxes? The issue is, for us, we are a democratic country, put in power by voters.
Good.
We are sensitive to what the voters want.
CS Kuria, some of those taxpayers, including manufacturers, say that the taxes that we imposed, in fact, if you take a look at the impact of the Finance Act 2023, make us uncompetitive in the region, have turned the country into... these are tax...
And that's a good argument. It's a good argument.
Allow me to finish. Yeah. And these are taxpayers, and manufacturers are probably the biggest taxpayers in the country. They say that, at least if you take a look at the Finance Act of 2023, it made Kenya uncompetitive in the region. It cost jobs. Factories closed. Kenya then became a net importer rather than exporter in some very key sectors. So the issue is not about raising taxes, raising revenues through taxes, but it's about which ones you do and the priorities.
Great.
And so the question some ask is, you are loading on after the impact of the Finance Act 2023, which resulted in factories closing, moving shop, jobs losses. On top of that now, you're proposing to pile on some more taxes. So what is the rationale? And is this an argument that...
That's very good, Yvonne. Have we rested the issue of legality? Because I really want us to rest the issue of legality. Because it's an issue that I'm going to hammer again and again, that the role of government is to raise taxes, So the issue of legal or illegal, let's park that one. I think it is very clear that, finally, if people of this country are not happy with me for raising taxes, I have got a destiny with them at the ballot. But anyway, I digress. We raise that. I really want to address that LSK issue and say that raising taxes that you don't like does not make it illegal.
I think you've addressed that. Can we now move on to the next
substantive
one? Because my substantive question, CS, was not about the legality of raising issues. It was about whether you listen to Kenyans when they say, this is what we don't want, this will not work, this will have a negative impact, you go ahead and do it anyway. And then it has an impact. For instance, the manufacturers. Let's address that.
Okay, good, excellent. Now, how do we listen to? We listen to all the arguments. We listen to all, it's a very comprehensive process coming from us in government, within the executive, before even we move to parliament. And then even within parliament, our majority, we control the committees in parliament. Honorable Kimani Kuria, Honorable Didi Nyoro, and all the other teams, they now get to the process public participation. Now, out of every 10 people who tell you, I don't like this and that, we don't implement all. It's a fact. Do we implement zero? No. We implement some. Even last year, I wanted some things done. Committee came and told me, no, this one we can't do it like this because Kenyans are telling us 1, 2, 3. So we do listen, but do we listen to all? Let me give you an example, Yvonne. You remember this time last year, I was the Minister for Trade and Industry. And I introduced a particular levy called Export and Investment Promotion Levy for discouraging imports. The same imports you're saying we are becoming an importing nation. I did put, it was very unpopular. I put in I wanted 25%. I put in 17% for imported clinker. I put in 17% for billets and the staff for making steel and all that kind of thing. I put in 17% for paper to stop the imported thing. I was beaten left, right, and center. This year there were arguments that we should take it from 17% to 2%. And it was there. I remember it came before us in cabinet and I said, no, this is a reversal of policy. So there seemed to be have been some consensus within the executive to say, let's come from 17% to 2% because the industry is complaining, but let's not come to 2%, but come to 10%. Today I was delighted when my sister, my successor, CS Rebecca Miano, they had a meeting with the president, and manufacturers, today is a happy day for me. Manufacturers say, actually, we don't want that 10%. Let us remain at 17%. Why? Our industry has expanded. We are employing more people. We are paying more taxes. So some of these things, people oppose things. People oppose things in the short term because of some deficit in understanding. A government, a responsible government, must make some decisions not based on today and tomorrow, but based on posterity and the long term.
CS, those very manufacturers have talked about, for instance, the impact of increased import duty on raw materials to produce tea sacks. They talk about one of the oldest companies in East Africa that closed its doors in March 2024, leading to loss of 60 jobs. Another paper bag and sack manufacturer which had secured a market for kraft paper lost the contract in September 2023 due to non-competitive prices.
Fantastic.
These are...
What a great example.
Hang on. These are the same ones that are saying that the Finance Act 2023 resulted in losses and companies closing. So my question is, there are some that have worked, but why then is the same manufacturing sector complaining about things like import duty for these kraft paper?
Yeah.
Kenya is at import duty of 35%. Uganda is at 0. Tanzania is at 25%. We are by far the highest in import duty, import declaration fee, railway levy fee. So all of these fees. My question to you with respect to this is, if manufacturers are saying these are some of the issues we had with 2023, and you're loading on even more in 2024, is that a sign of a listening government? Here's another one with the housing levy. Originally, it was at 3%. Reduced to 1.5%. And then it was on gross salary. It was meant to be capped. We all know what happened. It ended up being capped. We all know what happened with the housing levy in this country. So then the question is, all of these things that have happened in 2023, how can we then move into more proposals in 2024 when those very big taxpayers are saying 2023 was a bad year, 2024 will be worse?
Okay, let's put it this way. The same manufacturers last year were throwing stones at me because of the import levies. Today they are celebrating. Let's look at the issue of paper.
They're not.
Let's look at the issue of paper. They are celebrating, And tomorrow, by the way,
from their proposals before the finance committee, they're not celebrating.
Tomorrow we have a meeting with the private sector. the president will be chairing a meeting with the private sector. You know, most of us in cabinet will be attending where these issues. They have really zeroed in. After the private sector have gone through their discourse about all the issues, they have zeroed in on 3 to 4 issues which we'll be addressing tomorrow afternoon, ahead of the budget speech on that day. But anyway, let's look at this issue of paper. The same way I am telling you that people are complaining about Klinika, now you have got a 30 billion factory that was opened in West Pokot, that is bridging that's employing the 3,000 to 5,000 people in West Pokot, people who would be out of jobs if I took the short-term, shortcut, expedient way. Now we have got jobs within 1 year.
Okay,
1 year is not over.
Yes, Kuria, my question
now there's another factory opening up in Kajiado.
No, you're saying manufacturers are happy.
Yeah.
They make a presentation to the finance committee and say they are not happy.
There are two kinds of manufacturers. There are two kinds of manufacturers.
In your view, CS Kuria, are the manufacturers lying?
Some of the manufacturers are not manufacturers. You know what they are? They are importers. And I've said it here. I said it in this, media house last year. Some of them are importers. They are used to the good old ways of importing and importing. When we import, we don't create jobs. When we import, we don't create taxes here. My first primary person to me is that jobless guy there who wants a job. I will do it. I love manufacturers very much. But sorry, my first primary customer is that guy who I want to get a job, like the 3,000, 5,000 people who have got jobs in West Pokot. Let's address the issue of paper. What is paper? Is it robots? Is it drones? Is it aircraft? If we can't manufacture paper here, when are we going to manufacture aircraft? When are we going to manufacture motor vehicles? The same manufacturer, I would ask them, listen, you don't want us to manufacture craft paper here. Then what chances on earth do I have of ever manufacturing motor vehicles? We cannot keep doing these things the same way.
Okay.
And call ourselves responsible government. We have to do one thing. My theory of taxation is taxation must afflict the comfortable, and it must comfort the afflicted. What we've done through this finance bill, we have afflicted the comfortable, the importers, but have comforted the afflicted who is a job seeker.
All right. I guess they will disagree with you on that one. But I want us to talk about, the revenue-raising measures, right, in the finance bill. So, we're currently, finishing up with the Finance Act 2023. And let's talk about targets, because you're saying we're doing the same thing, over and over, but not seeing results. So seeing that the revenue targets for an additional 211 billion for 2023, this current year, have not been met, what gives you the confidence that the 302 billion shillings that we intend to collect this year will be met? All indications, including KRA themselves, saying they will not raise those amounts of money. So where is the issue, and why would you be optimistic of that?
There now we are on the same page with you. We are on the same page because we need to do much more work in terms of ensuring that there's compliance to revenue raising. I believe that KRA has got a lot of work to do. We are assisting them in the spirit of the one whole of government approach. I believe one thing, Yvonne, and I want to speak not to you, but I want to speak to Kenyans. Because we are going to take some very painful measures to bring everybody into the tax bracket and to make everybody a taxpayer. Once we do that, and it's going to be painful, once we do that, my hope and my faith is that within the next 2 years, 3 years, we'll be able to bring down taxation. I want to live within this term of the first term of President William Ruto.
But the president has talked about a different figure. So are you at odds with President
No, we are not
William
at odds with the
Ruto?
president. I'm just saying.
Because he's talking about raising, our taxes to what, 22.5?
Yes, there are 2 years of raising that taxation to be at par with, the rest of the world in terms of taxes to revenue, because those are global issues. What I'm saying is this burden of raising from wherever we are to where we want to be is now in the hands of very few people. Is in the hands of me and you. Still, there is a lot of people in this country who are not paying taxes. There are a lot of people who are outside the tax bracket. And really, our effort and our concentration and our focus should be able to bring more people into the tax bracket. I do not see a reason Why? I remember in the last 18 months, we did some reforms on some areas, for example, betting taxes, where we went straight to the source, and we now have something called kukata kwa mita, so that, you know, we just deduct the taxes at source. I am going to do it now from other taxes, for example, from our pay from the public sector. I didn't want to see a situation where we keep focused on everybody paying taxes at source, and we are moving to there. That means that once we bring everybody to this kukata kwa mita thing, millions of Kenyans will also be paying taxes. What is the sum effect of that? I see VAT. If we do that and get more Kenyans on the tax-paying bracket, I don't see why VAT should not drop from 16%, for example, to 12%. I don't see why the top bracket for the income tax should not come from 30% to 20% or lower. The problem now is that we have got very few people who are carrying this burden. Let me give you an example.
And what measures can you say, at least Finance Act of 2023 has done that gives us, and what is in there in the Finance Bill of 2024? Because ultimately the same taxpayers still feel like they're being raided.
Yeah, true for that now. When you look at all these telecom-based taxes, you know, the mobile and all that, is because they touch the widest number of people as much as possible. And that is the way to expect as we move forward. Taxes which you can be able to verify, taxes which you can be able to point. I know it is not enough, and we are going to push to ensure that. Let me give you an example, Yvonne, that will shock you. You know these teams, the one for paying the VAT, the machine, the gadgets, which we are now calling eTeam, because it has gone digital. By the time we met, just slightly over a year ago, we had somewhere in the region of 50,000 people who are going to be on these gadgets called teams for paying, taxes directly. Compare that with how many businesses are operating pay bills. You know, Lipa na M-Pesa, I don't know, Pochi la Biashara, I don't know, these millions. So somebody is registered for Pochi la Biashara. So they're doing some legitimate business. Somebody has got a business-driven pay bill. 4 million of them, yeah? If you look at M-Pesa and all that, people with those all over. But on the other hand, the registration for the purposes of paying VAT is only less than 100,000 shillings.
So let me ask
what does that mean?
Let me ask you.
Can I ask you a question? Wouldn't you want everybody to pay taxes? Do you have a problem with that?
In line with what you're saying, Cabinet Secretary, which is that the taxes should, afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. Many would say that increasing the cost of mobile money transactions, in fact, does hurt the hustlers, which is the premise of the Kenya Kwanza administration. Those are the ones who are moving money, and that perhaps takes away the whole principle of financial inclusion. No,
that hustler needs roads. That hustler needs power. That hustler needs water. You eat what you kill, okay? We have got no other place for raising money other than from people. The issue is not about paying taxes. The issue is how am I converting the taxes I collect? Because I'll be lying to those people and I tell them, look, we have a
So speak to the hustlers who were promised perhaps an easier...
I never promised hustlers they will not pay taxes.
Okay.
Please produce a video so that we can go on break.
All right, so tell them.
We didn't promise you that you will not pay taxes. I'm telling you.
They will pay taxes?
Okay. Hii mzigo ni yetu, tutapepa pamoja, tumeanza pamoja, hakuna mtu atapiga kona, tutaisha pamoja.
I have one last question for you before we move to our stories. Again, one on comforting the afflicted. So all of these taxes that you say are being raised from, the ones that earn the most to sort of give it to the ones, that need it. However, the budget allocations state different. For instance, the overall funding for education, which is, a key driver of human capital that the president lauds in this country, has a 7% reduction. In fact, there is a decrease in the total cut for both primary and secondary education by 12 billion shillings. Social infrastructure will suffer. There's a decrease in funding for university education by 22%. In fact, here's one question where you are talking about comforting the afflicted. Many would wonder the rationale then in the allocations for this, because you say you're taxing the rich, right? Which is supposed to help the most vulnerable. Yet, in the allocations, we are seeing social protections in the country receiving a major reduction in that. Let's see, for example, a 3.23 billion shillings reduction in the State Department for Social Protection. This is actually 3.05 billion that will come from the particular kitty that is supposed to go to older persons' cash transfers. 40% cut to the Women's Enterprise Fund. All of these are key pillars of the bottom-up economic agenda.
I like your question.
So my question is this. If you say you're raising taxes from the rich to help those who need it, yet we are seeing reductions for roads, higher education, petroleum, basic education, agriculture, medical services, amongst others. No, what is the rationale here then?
I like your question. We have got two problems in this country. We have got a problem of revenue. We have to continue raising revenue. We have to continue transforming our tax policy. And we have to continue ensuring that we have resources sufficient to run this country. We have another bigger problem, Yvonne. We have a bigger problem of not living within our means. We have a bigger problem of recurrent expenditure. We have a bigger problem of people allocating money, not for going to the Mwananchi, but for buying mandazi and travel and flowers for us.
So CS, why not address that issue?
No, we are.
And then give the money, address what you're talking about, which is the wastage, and then give that to education, health, including disaster response. I'm trying to help assist you. Which has been reduced.
Just give me a chance because you will benefit greatly. Social protection. 1.2 million people were on social protection by the time we took over this government. We are now on 1.9 million people beneficiaries. These 1.9 million people will continue receiving their 2,000 shillings. Our elderly people, our vulnerable, our people with severe disabilities, our orphans, they will continue getting the same money they were receiving last year, despite the reduction.
How's that? Explain it to us, because...
What you have seen is a reduction.
I'm asking.
That's what I want to help you.
It's a simple mathematical...
I want to assist you. It is not the money going to the people. Please,
yes, hang on 1 second. Let me
I'm not answering your question. I'm not answering your question.
So let me ask it this way. If you reduce the amount of money that is going, say, to older persons,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
And help me understand this.
Yeah.
Either the amount of money, and we have no evidence that the number of people who require this has in fact reduced from last year.
Yes, it has not. It is increasing.
It has in fact increased.
Yeah.
So when you reduce the amount of money that is set to go to older persons, and yet the number of persons needing it has increased, one of two things would happen. Is that you would reduce the number of people who are benefiting, or you would reduce the amount of money that goes to these people who are more than last year.
Okay.
Explain this math to me.
What you are seeing as a reduction is a reduction to the budget of the State Department of Social Protection. It is not a reduction in the benefits to the people. What is the reduction is that we are going to have less seminars, less, capacity buildings, less mandazis, less flowers, less all those things that are happening there, less per diems. We call it fiscal consolidation. So that money, instead of going to us, civil servants, to do all sorts of shenanigans, is going to go direct to the people. And that is a journey the president is leading, to say, let us reduce the recurrent expenditure, as you correctly put it, so that we do not affect the Mwananchi there, we will affect the rest of us in offices. And that's why I am much more convinced.
How much do you estimate has been used to buy mandazis? And 300
billion. You know why? More than 300 billion. We have cut.
So, for instance, in this one, which is the social safety net program, so you've decreased this by 3 billion.
Imagine.
It's actually, hang on 1 second, it's a 94% decrease.
No. It's not 3 billion. I'm just telling you, every elderly person.
No, we're talking about that.
Every elderly person
right.
will receive exactly the same amount of money they were receiving.
Okay.
As long as they
so my question is this.
So if you see any reduction...
Let's talk about this. The decrease in that one is 3.05 billion shillings. It's a 94% decrease. Here's the question.
From what to what?
What you're saying, therefore, is that this 3.5 billion shillings that you have reduced was being used... was being misused. I'm just following your argument.
Yeah, true.
I'm just following your argument. Okay, because your argument is that the money was being misused.
Let's go to what we call...
So here's the thing, CS. If you're saying 3 billion shillings is being reduced from the National Social Safety Net Program.
Let's go to indisputable facts.
And what you're saying is that this money, these are your facts, not mine, CS, where you say this money was being used inappropriately. So you want to tell us now that 3 billion shillings, instead of going to the older people, was being used for mandazis, for seminars.
Let's go to two indisputable facts. One, every elderly person we have provided for money in this budget. Every elderly person, every orphan, and every person with severe disability who is registered on our social protection program will receive exactly the same amount of money they were receiving before. That is indisputable. That is not contested. Two, if we have an exercise, when we started doing this budget, we were somewhere in the region of 4.1 trillion. The president gave a direction that we have to cut 300 billion from our own largesse, from our own exigencies, from our own O&M and things we were doing before. You should be congratulating us. We need to be. I am not even, as a CS in charge of performance and delivery, I'm not even done yet. And as soon as this budget is passing, I'm going to have a conversation with all ministries, departments, and agencies, because we need to live within our means.
Okay.
And by the way, you should be very happy that we're saying let's affect us who are in offices. Let's cut all this unnecessary expenditure so that money can go directly to the people.
Okay.
That's what we want.
Sorry, I just need to talk about this one here, because your argument that this money is being lost or being used inappropriately, and you're saying you want to send the money where it is. So Treasury has a 6 billion shillings increase. Defense has an 11 billion shillings increase. Foreign Affairs has perhaps round about 1.3 billion shillings increase. And all of these others have a decrease of billions of shillings. Is it your position, CS, based on your argument, that 48 billion shillings that is reduced from Department of Roads was being misused? Based on your argument? 34 billion shillings that is being reduced from the Higher Education Research Department was being misused. Were all these monies then being misused?
No.
Because I'm just following your argument where you're saying the reduction in some of these key areas
you are overgeneralizing and oversimplifying.
Well,
some of these areas, for example, for the roads, we have got. I would wish, if you ask me, that all of us sacrifice part of our budget to go and pad roads, because we have a huge deficit. We have got a lot of pending bills that we have inherited. We have got pending bills. The current pending bills for roads is in the region of 300 billion shillings. The money that, it's certificates from contractors that are there. To complete the current stock of roads, we need another 900 billion shillings. If you saw from your own bulletin, when government had to make presentations on the finance bill, why we had to raise more taxes, why we had to do the taxes this way, we didn't send any other minister. We sent Onesimus Kipchumba.
So if there's all that wastage, why are you adding taxes? Why not just, get the money from
we are
all of
doing
these?
both of them. We are doing both of them. We are chewing gum and scaling the stairs at the same time. We are basically working like bees 24 hours, raising taxes where we need to raise taxes, cutting expenditure. Can you imagine if you're just raising taxes and we're not cutting expenditure? Can you imagine if you're doing that and you're not modernizing care and the things we're doing? So all these are going to meet somewhere, and I'm sure not even within the long term, within the medium term, Kenyans will start smiling, and ultimately we can start paying less taxes, all of us together.
All right.
Thank you.
We have got a lot to talk about, and we'll talk a little bit more as well, about this budget and the rationale, because, it's great to have you here to get an understanding of that. Let's talk about